Hey guys, it's Vera Wylde, and I'm back again with some more tips for beginning crossdressers. This time I want to talk a little bit about terminology, because one of the questions that I get fairly frequently is people who are trying very hard to find a label for what they are, and there are a very large number of labels out there for people, men, who put on women's clothes for various reasons. And it's not always clear what those terms are meant to mean, or which one you might fall into. Now, for my own part, I actually think labels are not as helpful as we want them to be. I mean, we all want a community. We all want to know who we are and where we fit, but for my part, I don't find them particularly useful because I largely haven't found one that completely fits me and why I do this and who I am. And I've seen a lot of times that people find a label that's kind of close to what they are, but then they sort of force themselves to fit the label instead of just being who they are, even if it does not go to easy labeling. So, I mean, that's my little side rant on that. But I do understand that people do still like to have labels and like to be able to know what they are and know what to call themselves and all of this. So I'm going to go through a few terms. I didn't research these terms. This is all based off my experience, both in the real world and online, as to how I feel these terms are generally used. They may not be the academic definitions. In some cases, the meaning may have shifted slightly since the last time I'd really heard it used, but this is all based on my experience. So, with that in mind, we'll start with crossdresser, sometimes abbreviated as CD, if we're talking online. Now, that's the term that I use for myself, largely because it's the broadest. It's strictly descriptive. I put on clothes across the gender lines. I cross-dress. And that's kind of it. It's the term that I feel kind of carries the least baggage. People will still, be confused by it and, think that it may have a sexual component, or, they tend to think of, bad comedies, things like Big Mama's House or Jack and Jill, and that the term cross-dressing brings up those images, but overall I find it has the least baggage. So that's why I personally choose to use it. There's drag queen, which is a bit more specific. A drag queen is not simply someone who puts on a woman's clothes, but they are a performer. So a drag queen is a type of drag performance. There are also drag kings, which are women who will dress as men. And actually, I've even encountered some female drag queens, which is a very interesting sort of subset in all of this. But basically, drag queens are men who dress as women for the explicit purpose of performance. The reason they put on the clothes is performance. Maybe it's something that they do in other parts of their life, but if they're getting up on a stage, that's a drag queen. Now, certain drag queens will get very defensive as to what they feel qualifies, and sometimes it's a very specific look, sort of the RuPaul, very glam and big hair or whatever. That's a style choice. You don't have to do that to be a drag queen, but you do really have to be a performer if you're going to use that label. Next up, we have transvestite. And if you're online, often abbreviated as TV. This one I don't particularly care for. It is largely just descriptive, much like cross-dressing is, but it's always had kind of a clinical ring to my ear. It sounds like something that you'd be diagnosed as. And maybe that's just my personal feelings on it, but it has that slightly clinical ring to it. It's the sort of term that I'd expect to see in a mental illness dictionary. And for that reason, I personally don't care for it. Now, again, that may just be my baggage that I'm bringing to the word. So, don't necessarily take that on board, but, that's sort of my feelings on it. Next up, transgender. This one is a little bit of a minefield because really, transgender is a very large spectrum of many different things. However, people who self-identify as transgender tend to be very possessive of that term. and they don't, someone who is transgendered and is actually transitioning to the other gender hate getting lumped together with, hairy guys who just put on a dress at home because they feel like it. So they tend to get very rigid as to what they feel qualifies you to be transgendered. And I've encountered some in my life who say, if you haven't had hormone replacement therapy or if you haven't had certain surgeries, then you're not really transgendered. And I don't want to get into all that. Here's what I will say. Transgendered means that you feel fundamentally, deep down, inside, that the gender that you are is not the gender you were physically born into. And that's it as far as how I would define that term. Now, that you may choose to take hormones or surgery to correct that. You may choose never to correct it. You may never have the opportunity to correct it, but you are still transgendered, even though there will probably be some people out there who will not want you to use the term. But I don't generally call myself transgendered because I don't feel wrong in my male skin. I don't feel that I am deep down inside only a woman. I feel like I have kind of two sides to myself, and it's a little more complex for me. So that's why I choose not to use it. But again, I think anyone who very clearly feels that they are and have always been meant to be the gender that is not the one they were born into, regardless of what steps they've taken, if any, to remedy that, they are transgendered. She-male. This is basically a porn term, and it's not one that I would recommend using either for yourself and certainly not towards anyone else. It's kind of offensive, to be completely honest. And even some of the people who I've known who work in pornography and work in the sex industry only use it basically as an industry term, and otherwise they don't use that. Nobody really kind of wants to be called that. If you're looking for a strict definition, a she-male, generally speaking, is a post-op transgender. Well, I guess in a way, sort of mid-op transgender. Generally, they will have breasts either through hormones or breast implants, but will still have functioning male genitalia. So, silhouette of a woman with functioning male genitalia. That is your pornographic she-male. Again, nasty little term. I don't recommend it. Next up is sissy. Now, this is one that sort of used to have an older meaning, which was just sort of a general term for any sort of effeminate male would be picked on for being a sissy. These days, particularly online, it's taking on a extremely sexual meaning and a fairly specific one. A sissy is a submissive crossdresser, transgender. They may fit either of those definitions, but they are submissive, getting into dress, and usually highly feminized, sometimes infantilized style dress. Is deeply and inherently sexual for them. For someone who is going to self-identify as a sissy, dressing is unto itself a sexual act. And as I've said many times before, there is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But before you call someone a sissy or choose to label yourself as a sissy, just sort of realize the baggage that you're taking on, that you are basically saying, this is about sex for me. Or if you call someone else a sissy, you are assuming that it is only about, or primarily about, sex for them. So be careful, because you can offend somebody if you misuse that label, even though there are people who will willingly take it on. Those are the main ones that I could think I wanted to address. There's various specific sort of variations, T-girl, trans girl, you'll see girl with a U online, but I mean, those are all just sort of weird. There was one other that I wanted to address, which is another one that I don't like, and that's trap. And that's another one based largely on the internet and largely in pornography. There are some people who will self-identify as trap, but for the most part, much like she-male, it's largely relegated to to pornography. And as the name implies, the idea is someone who looks completely and convincingly female, but still has male genitalia. Now, whether or not they've gone to the extent that they would be called she-male in that, they have breasts of some form, or if they're just, flat-chested but incredibly feminine, either way, it can still apply. But I really don't like the term because it speaks to a very specific notion that, it's fine in pornography, but it seeps into the real world. And this idea that cross-dressers or transgender people are trying to trick other people, and they're trying to trap a straight person into having sex with them. And while I understand there are some people who find that as a very sexy idea, and as I said, it's in pornography because people find it enticing, I also think it's an inherently dangerous idea because it's one of the very dangerous sort of cliches and stereotypes that has never really been true. It's really difficult for anyone who's living a transgender life, whether full-time or part-time, to sort of be able to relay that to someone and who they choose to tell it to. But just for safety's sake, transgender people don't do that because, straight people can, and there are many examples of them freaking out and becoming physically violent. So the whole idea of sort of the trap, the transgender trying to trick men, it's a term I don't even like that it exists, even though I understand it in terms of, porn and certain people's fetishes, but I wish it didn't exist because it perpetuates a stereotype that I actually think is really, really dangerous. I guess that's about it. There's also androgynous, but that's kind of a different thing altogether from cross-dressing. But that's really just sort of going very gender neutral and not specifically presenting as clearly female or clearly male. So that's kind of its own thing. I think that's all the ones I wanted to talk about. So I hope you guys found that helpful. As I said, for me, I've kind of moved beyond labels, though if pressed for it, I will identify as a cross-dresser because I find it the broadest and then sort of the least likely to carry a lot of baggage that I don't want to deal with or to offend anyone. So I hope you found that helpful, and in any case, I will be back at some point again to give more tips. I'm still answering Dear Vera questions. And, videos will not be as frequent as they once were, but I am still out here, and I will still be doing these. So, until next time, guys.